Good morning, everybody. Hi, my name is Laura, and welcome to the Equestrian Skill Builders live broadcast, where we discuss equestrian-related topics and share ideas and exercises to help you and/or your riders. If you'd like to improve your riding and training, win more ribbons at your next horse show, and who doesn't like to do that, or generally like other horsey-related stuff, then stay tuned because my guest today, Dr. Piper Clem of the Plaid Horse, will be sharing some equestrian insights with us. Thank you for joining us today, Piper.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you coming in from today?
Canton, New York. I'm actually not too far from the Canadian border here.
Have you been across the border lately?
Not lately, not since the beginning of this year. We used to go out, go to dinner in Ottawa and stuff.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, pretty frequently, but not since the pandemic started. We miss it for sure.
Yeah, I bet. Well, for those of you who don't know, Dr. Piper Clem is the owner and publisher of the Plaid Horse. Her mission is to educate young equestrians in every facet of our industry and to empower young women in particular to find their voices and stories and share them. She has spent her entire career focusing on education through various channels, including the Plaidcast, North America's most listened to horse show podcast, as a professor at St. Lawrence University, co-authoring Show Strides book series, and by providing education articles, grants, and experiential learning opportunities for riders of all ages and levels, and also PhD in chemistry at the University of California, Berkeley. That is lovely. So inspiring to hear all those things. You are very busy.
Yep.
And me, I'm Laura Kelland-May. I help people improve the riding and training and understanding of their horses by providing hands-on and now virtual training to produce educated, thinking horse people. You can go check out my website. I'll put it in the description here. And I'm a comp coach specialist, high performance trained, Equestrian Canada judge and steward, and I produce these live shows for Facebook and YouTube. Dr. Piper Clem, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, what do you do to keep yourself busy?
One of my
It's only like we don't have a whole day here.
One of my favorite things is that I get to do something a little bit new every single day with the Plaid Horse. We don't have any investors. We don't have a board. So as long as I can pay the bills and keep the lights on, I can pursue any of my passion projects, which, relate from the very mundane business stuff in any given day, the daily grind that we all have to do. But I also have a fair amount of time to pursue ideas that I come up with or really try to change the sport in different ways. And I think we can all approach the sport so much better with education. I love what you do about creating thinking riders. I think we teach a lot of people to ride how the industry works right now. And we do not teach a lot of people to think about horses or think about the industry or think about where they're going with the sport. And so we really have that in common to educate people. So I love that we can always be trying new ideas. And this is all I do. I don't people ask me about work-life balance all the time. And I think that's a ridiculous question, because if you want to be good at your job, you do not have any work-life balance. I wake up and do this. Yep, I go to bed and work. I love to work, but all I do is work.
And so in your spare time, you work.
Yep. In my time off, I think about working. When I'm taking a shower, I'm considering working.
Right. Excellent. So we've got some very interesting topics today. Here's a summary of the topics. We're going to be discussing metagame breeding and what the most economic decision is for you, how the horse prices fluctuate throughout the season, and how game theory can be applied to the equestrian industry. So those are some excellent topics, and we're going to just jump right in with the first topic, metagame breeding, and what is the most economic decision for you. Go.
So metagame is an approach to our sport, which I don't think many people talk about very much. And it applies to everything. It applied to my previous life in chemistry. It applies in the education academic system. It applies everywhere. So what metagame is when you're doing something, there's an ostensible game that you are trying to win at. And then there are other factors that influence whether you win or not, but they're not part of the traditional game. So for those of you who watch Jeopardy, Jeopardy is ostensibly a game of knowledge. So if it's just a game of knowledge, the person with the most knowledge should win. But oftentimes you don't see the person with the most knowledge winning. The person who wins is a person who has the most knowledge combined with fastest use of the buzzer to buzz in first and actually get to answer the questions, combined with strategic daily double wagers, combined with strategic final Jeopardy wagers. And so your winner becomes not just who has the most knowledge, but some sort of combination of who has the most game, who has the most knowledge, plus who has the most metagame, which is who's the best on the buzzer, who's the most strategic about the game. And so like video gamers talk about this a lot in that like a lot of video games, it's like how good do you have to be at the game versus how strategic can you be? I'm extremely strategic, so I've always been interested in metagame because it's somewhere where you can bump up a few ribbon places. If you're looking around the horse show and saying, I ride better than that person, but somehow they're beating me, it's probably metagame. You probably do ride better than them if you're sitting there and objectively assessing skills. If you say, I train better than this other trainer, but they keep getting more customers than me. I take better care of horses than the other trainers, but they're getting more customers than me. That's metagame. And metagame can be literally anything about our sport. As a trainer, metagame can be going out to dinner with your clients, being more sociable. You might not want to do these
types of horses that you have and in your actual program.
Yep. Like metagame can be like if you teach lessons on Tuesday and Thursday and the amateurs in your region want to take lessons on Wednesday and Friday, you're losing customers. It's not because how good you are as a trainer. It's because you don't have control of your metagame.
Okay, so how is this for breeding? What would be metagame examples for breeding?
So one of the metagame things I see a lot is people wondering how to get a more reasonably priced horse. And they say, oh my God, I don't have as much to spend, but I want to win in the market. So if that's kind of your base metagame question, what are the different ways around the problem? So if you go out there and say, I want to buy a 7-year-old that completely passes a vet with flying colors, is a gelding, and
it's bay, it's got some chrome, and it does
maybe has a belly spot. It's fancy if it has a belly spot. I'm totally kidding. That is a sarcastic statement. But again, that's metagame. Lots of people.
But that might be a wish list for somebody.
Yep. And if I go online and I post a picture of the same horse with 4 white socks and a belly spot, 4 white stockings and a belly spot, I will get 100-fold the interaction with the horse with 4 white socks and a belly spot. That's metagame. It has nothing to do with how quality the horse is or how well trained the horse is, which is the game.
Right.
So when you kind of start to look at that problem all the way around, where are places that you can make a horse cheaper? If you want to win and you want to move up in the sport and you don't have the funds, how do you make a horse cheaper? So you can look at it rationally and say, okay, well, I could breed my own. You can look at different things. You can say, I could buy one that doesn't pass the vet. You can have one that, maybe in the hunter ring, like doesn't trot the best, but jumps to 10. Those are like examples of giving in places so that you get a better deal. And this is thinking about the whole roundabout problem and then walking your way through it. So other ways could be like in the jumper ring, if there's one that's like too hot that most people won't deal with, or like it's unrideable by other people, and you think about the really good quirky horses over the years, like Laura Crow talks about how Cedric bucked her off, all the time in the beginning. And, but how many people would have given up on that horse and not have an Olympic gold medal sitting in their room right now? There's so many kind of aspects of this. And when you look at what your program and what you're able to give on, you can go all the way around. Breeding. And so one of the natural things that people look towards is like, oh my God, I'll breed my own. So there are pros and cons to this. I would say that if you truly want to do this industry your whole life, if you're in it for the long haul and you're not trying to get an answer during your junior years or during your young rider years, breeding could be a really attractive alternative, but it takes a long time and you're going to have to breed a volume that produces something that you want, and then you're going to need the infrastructure for that business.
Plus,
So
unless you were going to keep all those horses, don't you not want your meta and somebody else's meta to be kind of meeting so that they can be sold?
Yep. And so the breeding is the long-term, all-in, whole hog approach. And can it work? Yes. Is it going to work if you breed one a year? No. And so the people, we have this complete misconception that no one can be successful at breeding in the US. And the numbers are scary if you sit down and do the math of how much the mare costs and how much it's going to cost for the foal to come out, and
keeping the foal for 3 years, and it steps in a groundhog hole when it's 3, and then you're back at square one again.
Yep. But, if you really look at the numbers like a business, you can kind of go through and say, there is some economy of scale here. There is a way to do this. And if you're breeding enough, then the numbers do work and they become viable, and we can do it in North America. But you have to make that initial investment and go over that investment hump. And the thing that I see with most breeders in North America is they're actually going too small and not having a business plan. Your business plan can fail because your critical mass is too small and too big. The breeding is very much about the sweet spot, and the people who are doing well, even in the US, there are people that are breeding 200 a year.
I think also sorry to interrupt you. I think also you mentioned something very important, was a business plan, and the people who are doing it, let's say recreationally, they are not considering it as a business. They don't have a plan. So that's probably another reason why it's not very successful.
For sure. And if you want to breed for the joy of breeding, there's nothing wrong with that, but you should have a business plan anyways and know what this costs and know what your burn rate is and know what kind of investment you have in there so that you don't get in over your head. I mean, I think a lot of horse people especially don't do long-term planning. And when you have a lot of horses at your house and don't do long-term planning, you can easily get into a spot where you have to fire sale them. And, on the flip side, investors like me love when someone is fire sailing a whole bunch and can buy them, for a song and do well there. But that's not viable for our whole community long-term. That's not a position I want anyone to be in. Like, how many horses or animals have you bought because someone had a vet bill they couldn't pay and had to sell something? And there's no reason to be in that as a hobbyist or as a business breeder. There's no reason to get stuck in that. I mean, I call it the joy of gene transfer. I think riding an animal that you bred yourself is amazing, and there's value in this. And when you have when you knew the parents and you have that same emotional bond, I mean, it's very serious, and I don't discount that at all. And one of the factors we talk about is in the business of this industry is there is intrinsic value, there is joy, there is, what does this horse bring you? I mean, my horse brings me so much joy, and I wouldn't replace that for anything in the world.
So what is the most economical decision?
The most economical decision is to buy a horse that is going with a hole in it that you believe you can fix or believe you can manage.
Like what, for example? What do you mean by?
Doesn't pass the vet, doesn't have a lead change, is going, and something about the market devalues it.
So it's a bay gelding and doesn't have any chrome, or it's got.
That's probably not extreme enough to drop the value.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe it's got a spavin that you have to do some maintenance on.
Yep. Or maybe it's 13 or 14, but you watch it canter and you think it has 3 or 4 more years. This is where your professional can match you. Your professional is their job in shopping for a horse for you is to match your holes with the horse's holes. So what can you deal with? What kind of risk can you stomach? what can you handle? But there are a lot of horses out there that have not found their people and have missed their mark, or maybe been poorly managed. And it's a risk. You have to, like, people want to say like, oh, well, it was perfect on the pre-purchase. Well, like you said, it can go stick its foot in a groundhog hole the next day. Like, pre-purchase exam is an evaluation of risk only. The only data it gives you is a statistical evaluation of risk.
On that day.
On that day. And if you are, if you own a horse, like, and you're the 1% statistic, like, we're all the like, it's a statistical evaluation. So your horse can be every horse can be the outlier. We've all had horses that pass pre-purchase exams with perfection that we were always kind of like, there's something not quite right that we can't find. And then horses that are like, oh my God, how is it trotting? That they keep going forever and they're happy and sound. And so I think a lot of that is trainer matching. But if you want to get the best deal, and then it's, what are your goals beyond that? And then Metagame says, what are your educational goals? Like, do you need to sell that horse on the other side? Are you trying to win with that horse? Are you trying to, improve your competitive stature? Are you trying to, as a young trainer, get more customers and get more attention? Because you might have a horse that's a lost leader. I had a pony in my program that I honestly thought was going to be a lost leader for a long time. He garnered a lot of attention, but I wasn't really sure he was saleable. But he garnered so much attention that I sold so many others that I was okay having a lost leader.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and every business has a lost leader. The gas station has a lost leader on gas so that you come in and buy a soda, because the sodas are so overpriced. As soon as you walk in the door, everything is so overpriced at the gas station. So
Right.
all they need you to do is walk in the door. And if they're just breaking even on gas or a slight profit or a slightly lost leader, they don't care, because as soon as you walk in the door, I mean, it is profit, profit, profit. McDonald's is the same way. The hamburger is a loss leader or basically breaking even, because when you buy that soda is costs them 3 cents and they're charging you, $1.50, and there's so much markup on that all they need to do is have something to get you in the door, and then they have their profit margins taken care of. So
that's why you kept that pony, because it was showing well and brought in new customers for you.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a kind of a great segue for our next topic, and it is horse show prices fluctuate throughout the season. How horse show prices fluctuate throughout the season. And I'd just like to remind everybody that we have Dr. Piper Clem here from the Plaid Horse, who's our guest today. And I'm going to put her link to her podcast, the Plaidcast, in the comments, and I invite you to go and watch her there. But you were talking about your ponies, and how do prices fluctuate throughout the season?
This industry is just like any economic model, and especially any luxury goods economic model. So there are supply and demand issues all year long. So, like in real estate, you talk about a buyer's market or a seller's market. We see that in the industry all the time. So if you think rationally about the horse show cycle, in the beginning of WEF, like kind of pre-circuit, we'll use WEF.
Okay, so let's just
example.
a second here now, just so people don't know, what is WEF?
The Winter Equestrian Festival in Wellington. So that's a big 12-week circuit with all the prize money. It's kind of the crown jewel in the winter. Lots of Canadians come down, and I know Aaron Ballard is there all the time. I know there are lots of Canadians every week competing. And it's given this cycle, you kind of get a Moneyball effect going on. So Moneyball says that when we don't know the potential of something, and this is related to the last question, when we don't know the potential of something, and the potential could be anything, we get so excited and we overpay for something for their value. And the horses that I talked about in the last segment are the horses that it's a known quantity. There's nothing to get excited about. You're probably not going to go make it something that it's not, but that means it's undervalued in the market. And that's how, like the book and the movie Moneyball, that's the whole concept that he used on the Oakland A's team, is that when horses are older and have done their job for a long time, you kind of realize what injuries are going to have, that particular horse is going to have doing that job. It's a lot safer. But when stuff is new and shiny, you get excited. And when you get excited, you open your pocketbook. And so a lot of it's managing this excitement and managing these expectations. So if you think about a horse in December, let's say it's going to do the division that used to be known as the first year greens. That's now known as the 3-6 green hunter. So in December, any horse could be the big winner. Right now, any horse could be the big winner in the first year greens. Any horse. And all that excitement dies as soon as they all walk in the ring and someone wins and someone loses. But right now, any horse could be that big winner, and there's all this excitement. So then it becomes a seller's market because there's all this excitement, and any horse could be the big winner, and everybody's getting excited, and everybody wants. I mean, who
because
in December?
They're not proven. Is that why?
They're not proven? Yeah, because they don't know. Like, because any horse could come out and win huge things, and they haven't lost yet, and there's this like kind of new shiny effect going on, and everybody wants to win at Devon next year in the first years, and until they lose to the other horses that are going to be at Devon, everyone can be like, oh my God, this is our, who doesn't start a new year fresh being like, this is our year. We're going to be the big winners this year.
Yeah, exactly.
It's finally our time to shine. Like, there's so much hope. There's so much optimism. So the prices right now are so much higher. People are bidding over the same horses. People want to win circuits.
They're bidding on the potential.
Potential. Yep. People pay so much more for potential. So what do you think happens week 11, week 12, last week or two of March in Wellington?
Well, the horses that aren't the champions are gone. So
Wellington and Ocala and Thermal also have the added pressure that most people are not near, like locationally close to them. So anything you have not sold, not only is it a neutral, like you haven't sold it and that's annoying to you, and you've probably been trying to sell it for the last 4 months and you're a little bit like, but you have a shipping bill back home on that horse wherever that horse needs to go. So if you're shipping that horse back up to Ontario from Wellington, suddenly it's not just like, oh my God, this horse is so annoying. I couldn't win on it and I couldn't sell it. And oh my God.
We've had it for 4 months and I've had to hire somebody and a groom and hay bales at $15 a bale, all that.
Yeah. And I think it's more than that. Yeah. And the other thing is that the horses who win on the circuit are winning prize money and the horses who aren't winning. So it's like even more of a double whammy. And so you sit there with that potential shipping bill. And then also, your home market might not be as lucrative as Wellington. Like where I live is not a lucrative market. Like I couldn't sell anything here. So you're also facing these prospects potentially, depending on where you're going home to. What do you think is going to happen to prices?
Well, I'm going to guess they're going to go plummet.
Yep. And people are going to get a lot more realistic. So really just thinking about how the cycle works and this is metagame, how everyone's incentives are throughout the circuit and empathy for others and what they're going through and what they're paying for. This really changes stuff. And like, while, and even on the little things like this, our business is so unstructured and unregulated, which is so good and so bad. But I think one of the good ways is that like, if you work with that person, sometimes there's flex in like, say, payments or something like that. So in December, even if you get the horse for the same price, in December, if the horse is $100,000, they're probably going to have other trials ready. There's a lot of excitement. Like they're not going to take payments, and then maybe week 11, week 12, maybe you still pay $100,000 for the horse, but they let you pay 50 now and 50 in 6 months. And that's just an example, but every deal in this industry, you're welcome because not really any rules. You're welcome to ask for anything. The other party is welcome to say, no, go die. But like, you are welcome to ask for anything in your negotiation.
Like what? What do you mean by anything? Do you mean
like
by price, or do you mean by caveats on the horse, or restrictions,
price,
or
yeah, price, payments, lease option. I lease a lot of my own ponies, so like we have a lot of different timings on the lease, or like right now, you know, instead of a year lease, people might negotiate a lease that's 1 year plus through the next pony finals or something like that. You know, because there's nothing rigid that's like every lease must be for 12 months exactly. You know, you can ask for any. I'm welcome to say no, but you're welcome to ask for anything, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And realistically, if you're working on a budget and you make people's life easy for them, you know, the odds that they have a little more flex during week 11, week 12 of circuit, then, you know, they do pre-circuit, like, are huge. And it's the same thing with any like major competition. You know, you have the equitation finals in the fall. I know you guys see this with the Royal all the time. Like the ponies price a week before the Royal and the ponies price a week after the Royal. You know, when it's qualified, excited, and might win the Royal, versus when it did not win the Royal.
That's right.
You know,
and is this the same for equitation and equitation horses?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. And you know, and like, especially, you know, you think about, everyone thinks that their equitation horse is going to go to EQ finals and be perfect.
Yep.
And have that expectation, but when they go to EQ finals and are not perfect, you probably need to get a little more realistic on price.
So along the same sort of line, and you were mentioning that you do a lot of horse sales, pony sales. What is the biggest ask or request or wish or want that people look for when they're purchasing a horse or pony? I mean, from what you have. I know that you sent me a list of the ponies that you have for sale or lease.
For sure. So I'm an amateur and I sell or lease my own, and I work with Emily Ellick in Wisconsin, and she's my trainer and professional who monitors every deal and does that stuff. And I'm more on the marketing side, but I get to see a lot of the data that most people don't get to see in this sport from having so many of my own and selling and leasing them. I think that the biggest thing is, as someone who leases, like, I really want the pony to work out, and I really want them to go on trial, and I want them to live with them, and I want it to be the right animal for that person. And I know that a lot of people, that there's a lot of reticence and reservation, and especially in this pandemic time when you can't really see them at a horse show or try them as easily. Like, I know that we've done a lot more like paid, like month-long paid leases, that the money applies to the sale or lease if you end up purchasing the pony at the end of that.
Like a trial type thing, just to make sure that it's suitable.
Yeah, but like a longer trial, so that you have like that, these times are a little weird, but or take it to the horse show on the trial or something like that. And a lot of these get a little long, so that they are paid trials, but that money can apply to a sale or lease if they choose to purchase a pony afterwards. And if they choose not to, they're out their lease money. They got to horse show a pony, and the pony comes back. And I think that stuff is great. And I really, I really think leasing is such a valuable thing. Like, I think that a lot of people are surprised by this, but if you really sit down and do the math out for how much money, for a $50,000 pony, if you buy it and sell it in 1 year versus lease it for 1 year, you actually lose the same amount of money, which people are really surprised by that calculation. But if you really do all the math of the buying and selling commissions and all that kind of stuff, and then you have 50 grand tied up in that transaction that you can't use for other things in your life. Whereas, when you're leasing, you can have the money and it's going away, but it's a very fixed amount. It's a fixed time amount. You can plan a lot better. And if you are moving up the ranks, and especially with the ponies, you outgrow in ability and in size so quickly. I just think that having that option to lease. Emily talks a lot about the right horse for right now. You don't want to buy the right horse for 3 steps ahead and grow into it.
So as a person who tracks this, what is the what is their most requested thing that they look for in the ponies that they are buying? If I'm going to buy a pony to resell, what is the most common thing that people are going to want in the pony that I'm going to sell, besides everything?
What do people want, or what should they want?
Okay, well that's great. Well, what do they want, and what should they want? Let's do what do they want first.
First of all, as a parent, you shouldn't be contacting a dealer or another trainer on your own. You should be going through your trainer and listening to your trainer. 99% of parents who reach out on their own want the unsuitable pony, and that unsuitable pony has 4 white stockings and a belly spot always.
So they want a cute pony.
Yep, they want the flashy, they want the fun, they want the beautiful. And beauty is so overrated. Everybody needs a good pony. Everybody needs a good pony. And if I were to say what do people need? They need a good pony, because a good pony you can always sell on the other end. A fancy pony you cannot always sell at the other end. A good pony you can always sell at the other end. Everyone always needs a good pony. Very few people actually need a fancy pony. Everybody needs a good pony. So Emily has 3 big things that she says every pony needs. So the first is a great canter. If the pony does not canter well naturally, the job will always be hard for it, and it just can't. It cannot protect your child if it does not canter well.
So when you are looking at ponies, do you have an idea in your head what that stride length is going to be, so that you can say, no, that one's going to have a difficult time getting down the lines?
So absolutely. But the metric we use on that is more scope than is needed for the job at hand. So I'm happy to buy a children's pony as an investment. I'm happy to buy a crossrails pony as an investment. I'm happy to buy a walk trot pony as an investment. They have to be the best pony and overqualified for their job. And the way that ponies rescue children is by having so much scope for what you're asking them to do, is that they can, and amateur horses, it's the same thing. Having so much scope for what you're asking them to do, they can always rescue you. I do the 3 foot on my horse. My horse could jump 3.6 any day of the week. I use that scope as needed. And pony kids are the same way. And that's where you get in trouble, is when when amateurs and juniors are maxing out animals. So
you're doing a 3 foot course on a horse that maybe should only be doing 2'6".
And so my thing on stride length is if they need to be a division pony, they need the scope to actually do one side. Like all my mediums could do the larges if necessary. All my, larges could do the junior hunters if necessary. All my division ponies. But if they have a good balanced canter and their stride is too short, they can still have a job as a children's pony and still be a great investment as a children's pony. So that doesn't inherently bother me if they're balanced and canter well. And the third thing, so great canter, more scope than needed for the job at hand. And Emily's third thing is always just a kind personality. Ponies that just want to forgive the children, because there's just a lot of forgiveness required. And in learning, it's just like being a professor, and some ponies are emotionally cut out for that and some aren't.
Okay. And on the other side of that coin, from the seller's perspective, what is the biggest request that you, as a person that sells horses, may have of if you are selling your horse?
My request is just that people are really upfront and honest. If you are on a budget, say that up front. If you're going to have to make payments, say that up front. It's a lot of times I want to work with you and I want to make stuff happen. But if we get all the way through the process and then you tell me you need to make payments, or something like that, I think that stuff gets really complicated.
Just keep lines of communication open.
Open. Yep. And really just work with your trainer and trust your trainer. It's not, as a seller, it's not my job and it's not Emily's job to educate you about the buying. process and how that works. That's what you're paying your commission to your trainer for.
Yeah.
And your trainer, like, it's also just best interest. Like, I pay Emily to look out for my best interest. She is my agent, and she will act in everybody's best interest because she's honest and ethical, and that's how she runs her business, and it's a repeat business model. And that's what she believes in. But it's not her job. She's not going to hold back on something, but it's technically not her job to tell you if that pony is suitable for you and your program or not. And she always puts a pony first and wants a pony to be successful, but not everyone's like her. And your trainer is the only one in this scenario who's truly 100% only looking out for your best interest. So if you're not utilizing them, if they're not helping you, if they're not explaining stuff to you, then no one is looking out for your best interests. And that's where you're going to run into problems.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that you had quite a few ponies. How many ponies approximately do you have in your roster?
I've had up to 19 or so. We've sold a bunch in the past year. I'm really about leasing. I don't prefer to sell anything. Everything we sold of mine has been basically an accident. We thought they were going on lease trial and they
didn't come back.
And they didn't come back. I love my ponies. I want to keep them forever. I want to retire them. I want to make sure. I mean, I keep tabs on the ones that I have sold because they are so good to me. I love them so much, and I just want to make sure that they have a soft landing their whole lives, start to finish. And I think the great thing about ponies is, and good kind ponies, is that they always step down. Like, I have ponies in their 20s that are doing like lead line and let like little kids groom them and
something like that.
Yeah, they never want to retire. They want to keep finding smaller kids who ask less of them. But it's really rewarding to have them at all stages of their career.
And did you miss the pony finals this year?
Yeah, so I was actually there when they canceled it. We had already gotten there, and that was rough to have that all canceled while everything was already paid to ship there, and the ponies were in their bedded stalls and all the staff were in hotel rooms, and that was tough. But otherwise, this year has been it's been an interesting year for sales because a lot of barns have put in policies where if you don't own an animal, you couldn't come out to the barn. Mm-hmm. And so that really pushed a lot of kind of on the fence people into leasing or buying their first one. So the first horse market this year was just hotter than ever. And I think that's great. So many new people joining our sport. Welcome. We love having everyone. So I think that's going to be a bizarre benefit for our industry from the pandemic. And a lot of people are still horse showing, and the economy is still rolling in the US right now. So
when's your next horse show? When are you you personally showing? Are you showing?
Yeah.
When do you go? Do you go down to Wellington?
Yep. I normally spend the winter in Thermal, and I stop in at Wellington and Ocala. I have not gone anywhere since Capital Challenge. Was there was a dip in cases then, and we decided it was safe to go. And then since then, it's been kind of crazy here. So I don't know what the right call is. I'm not bringing my horse anywhere for the time being, but I will definitely, if horse shows open up, I'll go to Florida and go to Ocala and go to Wellington and go to Thermal and keep stuff moving. But yeah, this is the most I've ever been home. In a normal year, I go to 50 or 60 horse shows. So
it's a lot of horse shows.
A lot of horse shows.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to our next topic, which is the game theory. Game theory. How game theory can be applied to the equestrian industry. So this one I had to ask my son if he knew what game theory was, and he explained it to me in small words. So could you just give us an overview of what game theory is and how it can be applied to the equestrian industry? And I think you kind of did a little summary in the first part.
Yep. Yeah, all of these topics are super related for sure. So game theory is basically talks about how people are incentivized to act, or how things will kind of naturally fall if left to their own devices. It kind of has to do with what incentives are going on, and I think this is really important to understand about the market of how are people incentivized to behave. And people can act however they want, and they might not act in a way that they're incentivized to act, but understanding where they're coming from can be really valuable in a lot of these negotiations. Just like having empathy for the people who own the horse that you're buying, and understanding their plight throughout the year will help you maybe get a better deal on that horse. Understanding how how game theory and their incentives work in other situations. So something I see a lot working, I'll see people who are like, well, I want to buy my pony from a family or one person. I don't want to buy my pony from a big dealer. And so at face value, this seems like, oh, like that's so nice. You want to support another family in the industry, and you want to, it's touchy-feely, local, commercialism kind of that we all like. And big dealer, big business, bad, whatever. Can't possibly do as well with a big dealer. But when you actually apply the game theory lens to this, it becomes a repeat business model. So I think one of the most interesting things about our sport is that horse people are like allergic to contracts still. There's not a lot of corporatization, formalization. It's all of some deal goes south sometimes, and people will be like, "Did you have a contract?" And I'm like, "Well, what am I going to do? Sue them?" Whether I have a contract or not. I typically do, but I don't always. And it's unless you're going to sue them, a contract doesn't really mean anything. And so people get so obsessed with people on both sides. People get so obsessed with not having any paperwork, which is absurd. And then people get too obsessed with contracts, which also doesn't serve you with this business. And so how you enforce a contract is regularly if you're going to be doing business with that person again. And we see it all the time. The politician who's worried about getting reelected behaves differently than the politician who's on their last term. These are all repeat business model decisions. So when you apply that back to that first pony deal, the family who is selling one pony and does not have to have a repeat business model on, they are incentivized by the market to gouge you for as much as possible, to lie to you about the pony, to say anything they have to get that deal done for as much money as they possibly can. And if in 3 months that pony doesn't work out, tough. They don't have to care.
Right.
From the game
Whereas
model.
you, with your model,
whereas me, with my model, I'm
want
all
them
on
to be happy. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's see what we can do to make you happy.
Absolutely, because I need them to come back next year to eat dinner next year. That's fine that you bought a pony this year and I can eat dinner this year, but I also need you to come back and buy a pony next year to eat dinner next year. And I'm looking at my future and I'm looking at my long term. So I'm not incentivized. I'm incentivized to put the right pony in front of you to begin with. And Emily sells or leases about 110 ponies a year. So in her collection, she will put the right pony in front of you.
This person says the equine business is good business for the lawyers. Thank you, Allison, for the comment.
And so the incentive is right there to put the right pony in your hands in the first place and not exaggerate anything about the pony and not try to get a deal done. Either it's a right pony or it isn't. And you think it's a right pony or it isn't. So I think that ups your chances of success right there. And then should something happen with one of the larger dealers, and I think they're all like this, like, are you going to get all your money back? Of course not, but will they try to make a deal to make things as right as they possibly can? All of them will, in that they have another animal maybe to sub in, or they will trade the horse back, or, something to that effect and put it into the next animal or something like that. And you have a much different incentive model. So if you're thinking about where people are coming from a rational basis and not an emotional basis, you come to a very different conclusion. And so thinking about all of your relationships. This is a lifelong sport. Thinking about all your relationships as lifelong relationships, you know, something you do for your trainer now might have them be in a position in 5 years to really help you with something, and they'll choose to take the time to do it. But again, that's looking at the long-term relationships, that's looking at the game theory, that's looking at repeat business models and how this sport works. And, you know, I think it can really basically be summed up by do right by everyone all the time. Like if you're in a position to do someone a favor ever, do them a favor, be good, be the person in this industry that you want this industry to look like. And the data really says that that will come back to you. And that's also been my personal experience.
Yes, I like that. And that's not to say that if you do happen to get a pony from somebody who isn't a dealer, like the backyard, no, I don't want to say backyard, but the sole pony owner, they have one pony they want to sell, that they are going to take advantage of you. But that's just a situation that, you know, a sample that you brought up, you know.
Oh, and these are all statistics and incentives. So anything can happen in an actual deal. And I'm not saying anyone else is out to get you,
Right.
but and I'm not even saying that they are not telling the truth on purpose. They might just literally not have the knowledge and not know. And, you know, at a different level, your dealer is going to understand whether that's suitable or not. And there are horror stories on all sides of every which way in this industry. There are beautiful, loving stories on every side of this industry, but just looking out for what are potential holes in how I'm approaching this. And I buy ponies from individuals all the time, but I'm conscious of where their blind spots are in the deal. And I'm very conscious that in 3 months, if something goes really wrong, I am on my own. And I'm not saying to do one or the other. I'm saying take the risk that is right for your family and your situation, and use all of the knowledge you can to approach that risk in a way that makes sense for your situation personally.
Excellent. Now, we do have, if anybody has any comments or questions, we would love to hear them and see them. And we do have one other thing that I really want to talk about. And I'm just making a little banner for it. Is this how gossip data and information are used as currency in the equestrian industry? I'm guessing that's the funnel that you're going to be looking through, right? I thought when you had this as a topic, I thought, oh, well, that is very interesting. I never thought of it that way, and it is. I really want to hear what your thoughts of, and I can understand now from speaking with you that you are a data type of person, and you are a statistical analysis type of person, that you have to get the facts and you study them and you make your decisions based on these facts.
Yeah, so probably 5 or 6 years ago, my parents were visiting at a thermal, and I had a dinner at my house, and lots of friends and lots of things were, you know, it was a fun dinner, and all the guests left, and my mom comes over and just like kind of gives me a little whack, and she's like, stop gossiping, and I was like, okay. And it really got me thinking, and I was like, Mom, I'm not gossiping, I'm like transferring information. And she was like, stop gossiping. And so this really got me thinking about it, that like, it's, you know, the industry is such a black box. Like the governing bodies are such a black box. No, there's no Kelly Blue Book on like what your horse is worth. There's no like Zillow on like what your house sold for, what your horse sold for. There are no market comparables. There is no information like anywhere in our sport. You're like, how many this, how many that? Like, I have a 7-year-old pre-green horse in Wellington. Like, what's the average 7-year-old pre-green horse selling for in Wellington? Like, and you ask 5 people and
you can't go to a book somewhere and say, okay, here it is.
no, and you poll 5 people and you get like 50 to 650 is the price, you know? And so it really, like, if you're not in the know, you don't know anything. Like, if you don't know who to ask, you cannot get data to make better decisions. So I teach a college class that's online, that's open to everyone. I'm going to be doing it again in January, and about the equestrian industry. And I really encourage everyone to ask me any questions that they need the answer to. I also do open office hours on Wednesday afternoons. We have 15 or 30-minute spots where people can sign up and call and ask me their questions. And a lot of people's questions are market data and market research. And it's the stuff that, like, I don't know with the confidence to publish, but I'm happy to tell you. And it comes down to this thing where, like, but you can't just run around asking people, right? You can't walk up to a trainer and be like, how much did this horse sell for? You have to give them something. So it becomes this currency thing. So it's always such a dance and such a game, because I don't like talking about other people. I don't like to be disparaging. I'm very positive. I'm very like, how can we grow? How can we do better? I literally have a sign on my desk. It says, how do we make goodness interesting? Because I feel like if you post something salacious, like, everyone clicks and shares. And if you post something that's like good and educational and, like, you know, as I'm sure you experience all the time, people are kind of like, oh yeah, education.
That's what they do. Okay, so I just want to interrupt you for a minute. Sorry to interrupt you right in the middle of your talk, but we do have a comment here. Lori Bradford, thank you so much, Lori, for commenting. How do you handle buyers who are looking at horses that are too advanced for them? Essentially, they will be out.
Oops. I might have frozen up a little bit here.
Horse, but what the? There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Did you see the comment? Yeah, we just said a little bit. That's live. How do you handle buyers who are looking at horses that are too advanced for them? Essentially, they will be out-horsed, but want the expensive horse end to place. That's a great question.
So from a seller side, I mean, this is absolutely a situation that Emily would deal with 100% as my professional and stuff. But what I would say here is that I know that she does not let people even sit on or try horses that are truly unsuitable. You know, she just says no. She said, here are my horses that you can try or that would be suitable for you and your program. But that is actually an incentives question, in that, like, it's not her job on her job is to represent me and sell the animal. Like, that question is between you and your trainer. And if you and your trainer work together and choose to purchase something that's unsuitable to you, that is not technically the dealer's problem.
On your person. That's
exactly.
That's on the trainer.
And Emily wouldn't let that happen, but a lot of other dealers would. And I think you have to be cognizant of that. But also, that's the type of horse, that's the type of situation that people don't want to let stuff go on trial to. So if someone is not letting you take that horse on trial, and they don't have other buyers lined up and, like, a big show coming up, or, you know, other extraneous things, that might be a signal to you that that horse is not actually that suitable for you and your program. Because if the horse was suitable for you and your program, it's probably not a big deal to let you take it on trial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, thank you, Lori, for that. Okay, so were you through with the gossip data and information? Were you kind of through that one?
Yep, mostly through. Just saying that I'm always looking for things that don't hurt anyone, that aren't talking about people, but are interesting enough that I can come back with data. And I think it's essential in business to know what other people are selling animals for, how to price your animals, what people are thinking, how they're feeling about different horse shows. And so much of this stuff, you know, can be found through genuine friendships, genuine discussion, and also that more socialization of trading data. And I think that's a place where it's really hard that we're online right now, because it's really easy to have a 5-minute conversation with someone and, you know, get all the stuff you need, give them some information, and it's just tough out there right now.
Yeah, there's lots. Overwhelm almost. Okay, so let's wrap things up here. Piper, so do you have any last words for people?
Just the more that you read, the better you will be at the sport. The more you read everything you can possibly read, every podcast you can listen to, every video series you can watch, every old book you can get your hands on. This sport is what you make of it. You are limited by yourself and how much knowledge you have and what you can cobble together. And success will take some people longer than others. But if you truly put in the building blocks and understanding and knowledge and hard work for success, anyone can be successful in this sport.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And I'd like to invite everybody to go check out the Plaid horse. I did put the link in the comments, and also visit my website /blog, thistleridgestables.com. And thank you so much. Now, go use this stuff and go hug your horse, and we'll see you next week. Thanks now. Bye.